Hello everyone and welcome to my account review for Contention season, so I'll be going through some of the units that I've been using the most. So starting with Jackal, she's one of the best DPS units in Cleave playstyle, which I've been playing a lot this season. You can complement debuff openers like Peyra, Ran, or Naqua with her, and it will be really strong into teams without much cleanse, for example Politis or Janua, who people use to anti-cleave. Okay, now on to Ravi. So she's a very good bruiser after her buff, especially into a very popular combo, which is the Laya plus ML Landy. So she can guarantee to crit the Landy and stack up the injury against Laya in the long drawn out fight, which she is very good at. So that's a solution to that meta. And then next off we have Janua. So he is one of the best single target DPS in the game still, but he lacks a bit of survivability, as in his immortality passive can be stripped quite easily by units like Politis S2 or BMH. So I have ER on him now, so 185 ER after the artifact, which gives him a lot more survivability, so he can actually do his stuff more consistently and not get stripped. And I had to sacrifice a bit of speed for that, but so far I think it's worth it. Okay, Surin, she's just for speed imprint. If you're cleaving or playing fast, you want as many speed imprint built and maxed out as possible. Okay, Naqua, a very dominant opener, especially if the opponent isn't drafting fast and they don't have Laya. And I also have been using her in Cleave as well. Sometimes people try to anti-cleave me with counter-attack units like ML Landy or ML Yufine, and Naqua as an opener is very good into them because you can just soul burn her, bind the whole team, and then they can't counter at all, and then you will have the advantage to you, as in you can do everything you want first before they can move. Shuri, speed imprint, Veronica, speed imprint, and then we have Politis. This one is a full damage build, but she's on book. I've been using her with Cleave for a while now, mainly because I don't want my opponent to hold her, since she's a very good counter into my Cleave. And she can hold book, which is good, and then her damage potential is also quite high, so if the opponent is trying to counter my cleave with like non-attack skill units like Elena, then she can punish them pretty hard. Okay, Elvira, she's just there to play against any fighting spirit units like ML Yufine or ML Landy, but mainly ML Yufine, so she can defense break the opponent as well, since I have some effectiveness on her, but you mainly want to have very high ER so she can survive. So Peyra is my fastest unit. She's actually holding my fastest gear, which isn't really that fast considering my rank. So this tells you that you actually don't need to have the best gear or be a speed monster to be able to play a certain playstyle. So as long as you know the correct drafts and you know the counters to each unit, that will be good enough. So Peyra, her counters, of course, Bunny Dom, and then she's not good into tanky comps because she doesn't provide defense break, so the damage potential will be lower than here, Aran. Aran can offer a first turn defense break, which is really good into a lot of tankier teams, but then he doesn't provide the unbuffable or the restrict, so sometimes units like Elena or ML Angelica can actually counter him, unlike Peyra. So it really depends on which scenario you're in to decide what you want to pick. So for example, against like Sea Phantom or Elena, I would go for Peyra, but for tank down teams, I would go for Ran. Okay, now Biblis, I haven't actually picked her at all this season, but she's quite good into counter-attack units like MA Ken or ML Landy, but not ML Yufine, because that's going to feed into her fighting spirit. But if you pick her into MA Ken or ML Landy, you can actually consistently debuff them or defense break them and make them a lot easier to kill, which in a lot of scenarios is quite helpful. and this drink is just here to provide some additional damage. Okay, so Arya, you can actually build her as a Janua counter. So she's actually quite a strong bruiser into fire teams or teams that cannot strip her. So you can't bring her into DDR, you can't bring her into Sea Phantom, that's a very hard counter to her. But in some situations she can carry you. Okay, I only use Ida in Cleave against Janua because of her ability to push them back and gain CR for the team. But in other scenarios, her damage just isn't enough compared to some of the other DPS in Cleave, like Emma Ludwig or Jackal. Elena is just for anti-cleave. You want to make sure that you have around this speed, like 240 to 50, and then combine with this artifact. So even if you get like Soulburn S3 by a run and get a stigma, you can still push enough to cut the opponent and actually steal the turn. Next we have Laya, one of the best units in the game. So she cleanses, she dual attacks, and once her S3 cooldown is down, she can cycle and do a lot of big damage with the S3. So I usually draft her with DDR, Albedo, and A Tywin to control the opponent's team and wait for her to get her S3. So just make sure she's well protected and supported. So here we have Rimuru. He's on an ER build, 235 ER after the artifact. This is mainly to make sure that he doesn't get randomly pushed back by Zeo or openers with low effectiveness. So he is mainly a Green Lilius counter to steal the buff and bypass the damage limit to kill the Green Lilius. So next off we have Albedo. I think she's the best tank in the game at the moment. Her artifact 3F makes her a DPS as well. So mine on 32k HP, her S3 can actually do like 8 to 10k of damage, which is very impressive for a tank. And if you pair her with DDR, the Venom will give her additional damage potential, which is a very strong combo. Not to mention 20% damage reduction, which is the highest in the game. Now, Celine, she's really good into any teams with 2 or more non-attack skill users. So for example, if your opponent is drafting, say, Laya and Moon Bunny or DDR, and then they all rely on non-attack skills for their kit, then you can choose Celine. You want her high damage like mine, this is like gold standard, and you can punish those teams really well with her. Sid is just another speed imprint. Ideally you want him to have higher speed than this, so he can be a more viable DPS in a lot of situations in Cleave, but I'm out of speed gear, so this is what I have right now. Gala, she is a very strong tank buster, so you can pick her into Laya, you can pick her into some BMH, you can pick her into A Tywin, etc. Anything with high HP, she can bust with 1S3. And you do want Wind Rider on her, so she can go stealth after her first kill and become a very high damage DPS on your team that can't be targeted. But you definitely don't want to pick her into any debuffers that can reach her or any controllers. And I don't think I've picked Destina this season. She's just on really high ER, I think like 312 ER after the artifact and the buff. But she's just here to serve as a backup in case I bump into like teams that really rely on debuffs, like Fumir. Other than that, I don't really use her. Ocean Breeze Luluka. So to me, she's fallen off a lot since the release of Sea Phantom, who can cut her focus. And then there are some units that have Ignore Everest Soulburn, which can be a bit overwhelming. But still, keep her built, just in case you bump into Sililius or Moon Bunny, then you can have a reliable cleanser and debuffer on your side against those 2 units. And speaking of which, my Conqueror I never used this season, just because my playstyle doesn't really match her. So I'm usually either cleaving, like going really fast, or I'm slowing down a bit, going like standard play with Laya, so Conqueror doesn't really seem to fit into either of those drafts. However, I've still seen some really good players who make good use of Conqueror Lilius. They usually just pair her with Emma Landy and SC Arrowell, and that combo is classic, but it's still quite strong and it relies on RNG. so it gives you a chance to beat opponents who are better geared than you. Okay, and now Lionheart, she's just got her new skin, looking really fancy here. But mine is on a speed torrent set, just to play as a part of Cleave. A lot of people use counter-attackers like ML Yufine, ML Andy, or Edward Elric as a part of anti-Cleave, so that makes her really usable. So for more details, you can refer to my previous video on this build of Lionheart Shemia. She actually has an episode on her own. But here I'm going to show you the expressions of this skin, which I hope you also got from this season of RTA. If not, you can have an appreciation here. It looks pretty cute, right? Okay, next off we have Ambitious Tywin. He's just an all-rounded knight who's good in basically every playstyle. Like, he's not meta, he's not like OP, but then like he's definitely a very solid pick in any playstyle. Like if you play slow, if you play standard, if you play aggro, you can all go with him, but that will have different builds. Mine is just for standard, to pick alongside Lyre, DDR, etc. You do still want some effectiveness on him no matter what build you go for. And Bellion, I always just pre-ban since I play Cleave or really aggressive now, so when I play standard, I'll ban something else, but yeah. So Crimson Armin, I don't think I've used her. I have Albedo now, so she's replaced her. LRK also never picked. Too much injury units out there, too much control. He's no longer strong. Okay, so next off we have Navy Captain. She's on Torrent set, has a very high damage build right here, as you can see. This build is really popular in Legend and High Emperor nowadays, just because of her ability to wipe out squishier teams, especially very useful in anti-cleave. And you usually want to pick her alongside BMH or Albedo and other support units just to make sure she's well protected and not afraid to die, so you can make good use of this damage. Arrowell, never picked, but I guess you can pick her with Knuckle or light units for the shield, but Albedo's better. Okay, Astromancer, she's good in a cleaver team where the opponent is trying to anti-cleave with a lot of counter-attackers like MA Ken or ML Landy, etc. So she denies those, so your team actually gets a chance to do your thing, and she also gives 20 souls if you have AoE first. So that's helpful for Cleave. Wanderer Silk, just another speed imprint. Nothing special here. Okay, and then AOL, I actually have two builds. This one is a tanky build, as you can see, very high effectiveness. So this is good into slower teams who are prone to controls. Like even Destina, sometimes I can debuff and silence them. And this second build is a faster build. It can be used in Cleave, and it can be used in anti-Cleave, since her S2 gives her CR push. So if, like, say an opponent like Ran AoEs, then it will give her enough push to cut and silence the entire opponent team. So, and she also have skill now. And Architect like her, she's just a book holder. I don't think I've ever picked her. New Moon Luna, very dominating character, one of the best units in the game right now. She's good in every single playstyle because every playstyle relies on passives, so you can pick her into anything basically. Sage Bao, just anti-cleave. You want him to have 250 speed so he can cut. High FRS, probably higher than this, but well, this works. And then Solitaria, a very good counter into Sage Vivian, who recently got buffed. So if you're worried about like dealing with Sage Vivian, this is the single hardest counter to her. Infinite Acades, just another cleanser, high FRS, and her ability to self-push makes it really easy for her to cycle away the debuffs. So even if, like, for example, an AOL silences her or like a Zeo silences her, she can probably rotate around and get rid of the debuff and be able to cleanse really soon. So that's an advantage of having her at your hand. She's also a very good counter to ML Luna. Alright, Bunny Dom, well, she just punishes any extra turn units. She's actually viable in anti-cleave, especially against ML Ludwig, since ML Ludwig relies on extra turns to get his momentum going, and you want to make sure that they don't have run though, otherwise they can just run S2-3 and then take away your buffs. Okay, ML Bellona, she's just for ML Landy. Aside from that, I don't think I've ever picked her at all. Now, MA Ken, he's good into ML Euphene, since ML Euphene always crits your whole team, so he can counter. And then he can also be used in anti-cleave in some scenarios, but there are usually better alternatives. Mediator, very decent cleanser as long as the opponent doesn't have like a skill cooldown increase unit. You want him on damage build so he can support your whole team better. And his S2 actually hits really hard. Strays I've never picked. He's a bit too slow. Also, like I think Green Lilius is better in a lot of scenarios, but for ML Senya, Green Lilius usually doesn't have enough damage, so Strays can one-shot her. But I usually just ban her, so it doesn't matter for me. Urban Shallow Shoe, well, she's a very strong unit who can inflict a lot of injury, but you want her to be very fast, usually like faster than this. I'd say like 260 to 270 speed. That way she can cycle more, and then her passive will allow her to stack up more injury, and that is how she can maximize her damage output and punish bruisers. My Abyssal Euphene is currently on Destruction set. As you can see, she's super tanky, and she has high crit damage compared to a lifesteal build. This is mainly because I use her as an anti-cleave. I want to maximize her survivability and as well as her damage. Because if you have like a lifesteal set, she might die very easily if she doesn't counter and heal, right? So this is more reliable. Arbiter Vildred, ever since his EE and buff, he is super strong. So you want Torrent set, you want maximal damage like this. So this hits super hard. It's very good in anti-cleave, as I've showcased before in a video with him and BMH. So as long as the ML Luna and Braceria are not on the field, then he will shine. And this is my Degen Aubrey, still a work in progress. Okay, Remnant Violet, I've also showcased him in the previous video. He is a very strong single target DPS who hits very hard. However, his kit is easily countered by a lot of anti-evasion units or passive seals, so you don't want to pick him too early, otherwise it gives your opponent a chance or a window to pick a lot of counters to pin him down. This is my opener Briar. I use her in Cleave sometimes. One is to fight against BMH, just to deny his ability to revive his allies. And then the other is sometimes Bran is not available and I need someone who can defense break by ignoring effect resistance. And she does the job really well. So she can pair really well with ML Ludwig, and Soul Burn, Defense Break, bring the ML Ludwig up, and kaboom, your whole opponent team will be dead and cannot be revived, right? So PCF, I've never picked this season. She's just not reliable, I guess. Next, we have Sea Phantom. She is the best opener if you're playing Janua, and she's actually quite dominating against any units that rely on fighting spirit or focus, like Ravi, like both Ravis, or ML Vivian, etc. So if your opponent is playing those, you can actually pick her as your opener. And Eternal Wanderer, this is my main, like primary cleaver DPS. As you can see here, I have given him my best gear. Like, this is probably some of the best DPS gear you can ever get in the game. I've crafted 4 of those from the web events, and very good attack, very good crit damage, very good speed, but I am still waiting for the next arena season to start so I can get the slate to max his crit chance. Aside from that, if you have him, build him, right? he has the highest damage output potential for Cleave playstyle. So if you're interested in joining Cleave, he will be one of the key units that you can have to play that. Spectre Tenebria, never used her. Too many counters in the current meta and she's no longer useful. She used to be the queen though, which is a pity. Alright, and Zeal, my Zeal is on a hybrid build as you can see. I have 200 effectiveness. This is just to make sure that I can push back and silence someone on the first turn, like for example a BMH or some support unit with some ER, like DDR. So I get an extra turn to do my stuff and they can't like pop off right away. And Blood Moon Haste, my Blood Moon Haste is quite cracked as well, counter set with a lot of bulk, and I actually use him in every playstyle. Sometimes I even first pick him in Cleave playstyle because of like how strong of an anchor he is to the team. Like sometimes he can just turn the whole game around on his own by reviving the whole team, and he can be really annoying to deal with if you are cleaving into him. So that's why sometimes it's really beneficial as a cleaver to first pick him. And even if you like first pick him and then the opponent steals your cleaver units, you can still pivot into an anti-cleave with him in your hands. And speaking of how strong BMH is, we have one of the like biggest counters to BMH, who is DDR. So he's one of the best injury units and debuffers in the game. Mine is on an effect resistance build, as you can see here, around 200 ER with the artifact. And even so, you still want around 50 effectiveness on him, just so that alongside the effectiveness buff on his S2, you can get 100 F, so that will be enough to land Venom and stuff on a lot of bruiser units who are typically built with 100 ER. So that's all the builds I have, but if you're interested in tips on drafting or strategies, you can refer to my previous video on Emperor tips in RTA, and I'll also be making more of those in the future. So if you are interested in seeing more, or if there's a particular playstyle or topic that you want to see, make sure you comment down in the comment section below and I will make it happen. And I'll see you in the next video.